have a wrong AD there now. Oh, it was valid when I wrote the drafts or the slides. I'm not going to change it now. Okay, I guess it's now 12:30, so we should be getting started. So this is Ipsecme working group, and I'm Tero Kivinen, and my co-chair is also online. I don't know if, yeah, there he is.
And your co-chair is telling you to speak up or closer to the mic.
All right, so I will move close to the mic. What? Where's your pink wall? Yeah, all kind of weird. So our responsible AD is no longer Benjamin Kaduk, it's now Roman, who is probably also, I can see him. He's not online. But anyway, so let's go forward then. So this is the note well, which you have probably noted well already, or at least for this point of view. And we don't need to have blue sheets because they are taking automatically care of if you use the Meet Echo, either the online version or the full version. If you're using full version, make sure you might mute out the audio. Peter already agreed to take notes, but it would be useful to have somebody else also helping him in case he misses something. And I don't think we actually need the jumper scribe. I will try to check the jumper myself also because I can detach it now, so it's much more easier to do that. And there's links for Jabber and Meet Echo and notes. The notes, the Kodiami notes already had the template for the sessions. Oh, you said it was sounding better before I getting close to the mic. Now you can actually hear me. All right, so we have a quite short agenda and 2 hours for it, so we will have plenty of time. So we have 2 presentations today. One is the group key management for IC version 2, and the other one is the optional SA and TS payloads in child exchange. All right, so any comments on the agenda? Any bashing you want to do with the agenda? Any technical difficulties we need to take care of before we start? It's in the agenda, I need to do that. All right, so working group report, what is the current status? So we have now IC version 2 intermediate I think was actually approved a couple of days ago. So it says in RFC editor queue. IPTFS draft 3, the base draft and the young and MIP document are now in the ISG, or actually, sorry, the ADQ, waiting for AD to read and put them out. The RFC 8229 bis was actually put to the publication requested on, I think, on Wednesday or yesterday. So it should be getting out. I will be getting the IC version 1 algorithm to historic and labeled IPsec also out very soon. And I already gotten, because I have the separate write-up, so I just need to do the review and put a write-up in and fix it. So the multiple key exchange, I already got also some kind of a proto write-up for that, so I can actually start looking at that too. And then we have the GIC version 2 and the add IC and out announce that hasn't had that much of work on process. The GIC version 2 did get I got a review, and there was a new version of that changed it quite a lot, and we have a presentation of that today. All right. Okay, go ahead, Christian.
Hi. Is my voice working?
Yes.
Hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah, great. I just wanted to mention that we are starting work on Linux implementation of the IETF, and so just wanted to add maybe a little bit of push. I know it's not in your guys' hands anymore, but I don't know if is it Ben that has to still sign off on it, or has it shifted to Roman now?
It shifted to Roman, so Roman will be checking it out. I don't know how long his queue is, but of course you have to understand that probably all the stuff that moved from Roman to him might be ending up in the end of the queue, not in the beginning, or he might be sorting it by the date. I don't know. It depends on the date.
Throwing them all up again and seeing where they fall. Who knows? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
I think he noticed that some of those had been in queue quite a long time, and he was a little bit surprised for that. And so I think he might be actually prioritizing some of those.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah. So so we're doing it'd be great if we could reference an RFC rather than a draft when we go to submit a patch set to Linux.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay. So there's a more detail. As I said, the group key management for using Ike version 2. We did get a new version of that, and it should be it's still on the working group last call because I didn't want to close it because there was so little reviews on that. But I will close it after this meeting, and if I don't get any other comments on that, then I will still put it out and post it there because I want to get it out. It's not really, we inherited this document from Ipsecme, and it's just mostly there to try to get so that people can actually use Ike version 2 to do these things that they are using now Ike version 1 to do, and we want to get so Valerie has some comments on that.
Hello. I just want to say that I think
you are very quiet.
Should I? Can you hear me?
Barely, but
something wrong. I don't know.
No, it seems to be getting louder now a little bit.
So I think that one more round and review is needed because there are some issues that will definitely require publication of a new version, and I will discuss them in my presentation. So I think that even if you close last call after this meeting, I think that one more round review is needed.
Okay, so I will wait anyway for at least one more revision before I put it forward. All right, good. But so that's the status, and then I think I will actually go to the presentation, and you are the first one to talk about the group key management using Ike version 2. So Valerie, if you just go ahead. And do you want to actually? I will pass you the slides. I think you can.
What should I do?
Pass slide control.
Oh, I see.
So you should be able to drive the slides yourself.
Okay. So can you hear me? Is this sound good enough? Or should I speak even so loudly?
I think it's okay.
Okay. So, well, I think that completes. This is it. So, document status. Version 5 was published just in March, a few days ago, just before this IETF, because I missed the deadline and need to ask the Secretariat to publish it. And it contains just quite a lot of changes from the version 4 as a result of Tara's review. And I will now discuss the remaining issues and quickly will list the issues that are resolved. So these issues that are resolved in this version. So Tara asked for a terminology section, and I have added one. And I mostly borrowed all the terms from Ipsecme and GDOI documents, and probably choose which definition are the best because they differ slightly. And so I do my best, and I think that people should review it and decide whether it is enough or some more definitions are needed. So again, the other issue, another issue is that Terra asked for. It is clarified that ICE-OAuth and GSA-OAuth exchanges are almost the same regarding to IQ2 extensions. So GSA-OAuth will inherit all the extensions that are applicable to IQ-OAuth exchanges. Besides, probably with exceptions that some exchanges that are only related to IPsec and not, well, to unicast IPsec. But generally, they are the same exchanges, despite that they have a different exchange types. They are very similar and will, all the exchanges that can be applied to GSA-OAuth that are defined for IQ-OAuth will automatically be inherited. So we doesn't need to write a separate document just to say that this extension is also applicable to GSA-OAuth. Then keys used inside the RKSA are renamed because, again, Terra said that it's confusing. They are renamed from SK, ASK, ESK, W to GSK, A, GSK, E, GSK, W. So it's from shared key to group shared key. I think it's a good suggestion. Again, as Terra suggested, the change in authentication method and authentication key is now prohibited for the lifetime of group security association. So when group controller key server performs a rekey, it provides a group with a new policy, but this policy cannot change authentication method that authenticates these rekey operations. So if group controller key server selected that it is digital signatures from the very beginning, it will be digital signature up to the end of group security association lifetime. I think it's also a good idea. It will make things more robust, in my opinion. And then using sender ID is clarified, and in particular, in more detail, this situation with group controller key server runs out from available seats and need to disband the group and rejoin it is defined in more detail, described in more detail the situation. And in general, consistency of the document is improved and a lot of clarification is added because it was previously leftovers from previous versions, and I tried to tie them and make the document more consistent. So there are still a list of unresolved issues. Here is the list, and I will go and in the following slides and describe each of this issue in more detail. So we can change authentication method RKey for RKSA during RKey operations, during multicast RKey operations. But is it allowed to change authentication key, public key? For example, group controller key server starts with public key 1, and in the middle of the lifetime of group SA, in one of the RKey operation, in multicast RKey operations, it provides group with a new public key. Well, now it is prohibited in the current version, but I think I need more opinion on that. Well, anyway, for the remaining slides, everything that is in blue is my opinion or something that is already in the draft. So, and I also want to hear. I'll be very glad if people can comment just online on the issues, because I tried to nail down the issues to the small pieces, and sometimes the decision, at least some opinion, can be collected right now. So if you have any opinion, please speak up So for me, just to know. So any opinions on that? No opinions. Okay, let's go further. So using ports. GDO used port 848. And for compatibility with GDO, GIQ2 also allows to use this port. However, we discussed with Brian a few years ago, and he suggested that standard IQ2 ports 500 for 500 are also allowed, because now GIQ2 is treated as more as IQ2 extension. It is a big extension, complex one, but it's just an IQ2 extension. So as well as using TCP. And one question, should the unicast IKSA switch, if port 842 is used, should the unicast IKSA switch from this port to 4500 if nothing is detected? So my opinion, yes. But what other things?
This is Tero commenting, not as a chair, but also, you know, I think we need to move to port 4500 because we want to have a different format with having the, you know, the UDP encapsulation for ESP and for IKE. So I don't think there's an option not to move. We could have an option to move some other port, and you know, but we need to have some way to identify whether it's using this 4 bytes in the beginning or not.
Well, and port for 500 will always indicate that
yes,
non-ESP prefix is present. Yes, but for ESP. But if you talk about IKSA, there's no difference in format from whichever port you use. So, and for ESP, we're talking now about unicast IKSA from group member to group controller, the registration say. So if it starts from port 848 and not is detected, should it move to port 4500? Well, there's no ESPSA between them, but we can move just to make, I don't know, just to keep the same logic as it's for IQ2.
Actually, I was wondering, do we think that the multicast things are going to be work if there's a NUT in the middle?
It's another question. It will be in the next slide. It's the next.
Okay, sorry.
So if nobody objects, then I think that it is. I will think that we should move to port 4500 just to keep the logic the same, regardless of whether port 848 or 500 is used from the very beginning. So the next, some architectural question: should we allow unregistration group member from the group? So I don't have strict opinion because in most cases, just group controller Kiseva doesn't care about the population of the group, because most operations are multicast, and you don't know how many members of the group are currently subscribed to it. But in some cases, this may be useful. In particular, if some key management method like linear key hierarchy LKH is used. In this case, a group controller Key7 need to keep a trace of all the members of the group, just to know which member it can exclude from the group, for example. And in this case, if a group member can explicitly say, well, I'm leaving, this will allow to keep some resources of group controller Key7. But anyway, it's unreliable. It can just leave and say nothing. So I don't have strict opinion, and if somebody has one, I'll be glad to hear. So no opinion. Well, okay, let's go further. So just there were 2 error notification related to, well, there are more, but there are 3 error notifications that are related to group IQ2. Group ID not found. It's very clear when to send it. It is sent when group member requests to join the group that doesn't exist. And the other 2 are more a little less clear. So authorization failed and registration failed. And the registration failed initially wasn't in the draft. It was suggested to it by Brian, again, a few years ago. And at the time, we didn't discuss the distinction between these 2 notifications. And I think it's very clear, it must be clarified, it must be clarified which error notification to send when. So my interpretation, which is currently the draft, is that authorization failed is used when something is wrong with group member. So it is not authorized to join this group. And registration failed should be sent if something wrong with the group itself. So it existed, but for some reason, group controller K7 cannot add more members to this group. For example, group capacity is exceeded if the group has some fixed capacity or something else is wrong. So is it okay for the community, this interpretation? So nobody objects. Okay, let's go further. This question was raised during in Terrace review. So we have, in fact, we have 3 authentication modes for multicast key operations in JIQ2. The first is very clear; it's a public key signature, and everything is okay with it. And there are 2 authentication methods that involve using shared secret. And first is an explicit shared key authentication. Well, it is very limited. Of course, it is very limited because there's no origin authentication, and every member of the group can impersonate group controller K7 in this situation. So it must be used for the very small groups with highly trusted participants, but still it is very handy because it's very resource unconsuming. But there are 2 types of this notification. First, if we have an explicit PSK that is provided to the group members by group controller K7 when the group member registers to the group. And the other, it was introduced later, just came to my mind that it can be done, is just an ability for the group member to correctly decrypt and verify the ICV of the key message. It allows the group member to be known that it is in the group. So it authenticates the message that it received is authenticated by the fact that the group member having its current key can correctly decrypt and verify the ICV. So it's an implicit shared key authentication. And it has, well, they are very, very similar, but there is a difference. With explicit shared key authentication, there is a dedicated symmetric shared key that is used for authentication and that group controller provides transfers to group members. And with implicit, there is no dedicated shared key. Every key operation which change keys that are used to protect multicast key messages will change this authentication key. So this key are used for the fact that the message is authenticated. And so there is no OSP load in this case. So Terra suggested to remove an explicit shared key authentication because, again, they are very similar. And the difference is only whether we have a dedicated shared key or not. And I don't have a strict opinion. I think that if you have some long-lived shared keys that it used for authentication only, that it's probably, for some reason, this key is selected, and otherwise this key are just automatically generated, usually automatically generated, and are changed very frequently. So I have no strict opinion, so I want to hear from others what they think. So, Tero?
Yeah, so this document, so we can say not the chair. So one of the things I think that is difference there is really that, okay, if you have two keys, then you can change the, keys, you can change the authentication keys faster than the keys to protect the messages. But I don't think it's actually going to be the case that you would actually want to do the other way around usually. So, and you can change, the key that you encrypt the packet faster than the authentication keys, because you can't actually see the authentication keys unless, even if you miss some packets and don't get the update, if you don't know, get the encryption key, you can't read the packet. So even if the authentication key is the same, it doesn't help you at all. So I was thinking about they are, in my sense, they are exactly same in a point of, usage, and having it simple, more simple, and less options is always better. So I would actually say just keep only one and get rid of the, having the explicit authentication key there, because I don't think it buys us anything. It just makes it more complicated.
Well, I know your opinion. Well, actually, I don't disagree. I just want to hear from others to be more sure, to make more confidence in the decision. Okay, if no one objects, then I will eliminate an explicit shared key authentication and will leave only implicit one to simplify things in the next version. Okay, an interesting topic, an extended sequence number. So I just realized that it is quite challenging to use extended sequence numbers as multicast assay, because high order 32 bits are never transmitted, and if a group member joins the group late, well, alone late, when it is created, it doesn't know. Either we need to provide it with an high order bits, and or it should somehow guess. And there are algorithms in RFC 3302 and 3303, but they're very resource consuming. So should we provide, well, we cannot provide high order bit, but because group controller key server doesn't know it, so it is not an option. Only group senders know high order bit. So the only option is that group member, the receiving group member, runs algorithm defined in RFC 4302, 4303 to know these high order bits, and it is very consuming. So should we not recommend to use ESN? Should we prohibit its using? So Tero.
So the document. So I think we can actually, we could also put them into the actual, when we are sending the key materials to the, or updating the key materials or the keys, we could also, send and up the highest, 32 bits of the ESN. So in that case, even if somebody joins late and misses some frames, they can still do the very short search of the higher order bits.
No, we can't, because group controller key server sends their key, and it doesn't know. It is not a sender. It doesn't know what is the current
Okay.
version. value of.
Because it might not be part of the group itself.
Yes, even if yes, it might be not a part of the group. At least for data security assay, it is always part of the group for a key assay, but for data security, so it doesn't know.
Paul, speaking. Yeah, actually, I had the same question as Tero, so thanks for answering that. I just want to say, like, you should not add must not, because there might just be high-speed applications that really rely on this. Otherwise, they get too many rekeys. So I disagree with must not. I might even disagree with. I might not even agree with should not.
But what I suggest? What I suggested?
Well, I guess the only option then is the resource-consuming method of finding out. Okay,
so we should just clarify it in the draft and say that it's up to your environment, right? Okay. The next one. So integration with PPK. The previous version of the draft were a bit incorrect with this regard, and Tara correctly pointed me that it was mistakenly interpreted that keys that are transferred in GSA OAuth are not protected by PPK. It's wrong. They are protected by PPK, but only partially. So they are encrypted with JSKW, which is derived from SKD, and SKD is derived with PPK involved. So the keys, the multicast keys that are transferred to GM are encrypted with the key that depends on PPK, and it's good. But the authentication of this key is not performed on per key level in contrast with encryption. So they're authenticated on IK message level, and IK messages are not protected against quantum computer in the very first IK assay before any key takes place. So we have a situation when multicast key, an attacker that is equipped with quantum computer cannot read the key, but it can read all the other stuff, and it can, if it can break Diffie-Hellman online, so it can manipulate this key without knowing them. So it can replace them with garbage and makes everything that authentication will succeed for the group member. So it's still not a good from security point of view. So, but it's better that attacker cannot read them, but it's worse that it can manipulate them. So is it still an important threat to justify development of draft Ipsecme QIQ2 alternative, QueRAlt, that describes an alternative way of using PPK? So I don't have strict opinion right now, so Teron.
Yeah, this document. So I think if it's important for the application to protect against that, there's a very simple solution for them. They can do the rekey of the IKSA immediately when they create it, and that will protect it against these attacks also. So because we already have a simple standardized way of solving this issue, I don't think we actually need to do anything specific here, except to say that if you care about the group policy and this kind of attacks, do the rekey as described in. I think actually we already have text in our PPK draft saying that you should do that if you care about it.
Well, okay, it is possible. Just want to remind you that the way it is not as easy to make this in protocol level because a key must be done by group member. So it is defined as a draft. We define a new notification. So a key is needed, and then a group member performs ISA key and GSA registration. So instead of two message exchanges, we should have about 4 or 5 exchanges just to get a registration. So if it is not a big cost, then we can follow this way. It just will complicate a bit the registration procedure. So Scott.
Back to ESN. I think, in my opinion, it should be a must not because of the complexity. However, if you do allow it, you need to actually outline how it works. How does a group member who does learn the high order bits? If it doesn't, it's a different implementers will do different things and it will not interoperate. We've done that before. It's ugly.
And RFC 3302, 3303 defines an algorithm for guessing these high order bits with just guess procedure in a loop. So it's very time inefficient. So you try some candidates, but actually if your high order bit differs dramatically from the current, it will vary resource consuming. So if it is just 1, 2, or 3, I don't know, +1, +2, +3, it's not very time consuming, but if it is very different, it is very time consuming.
Yeah, if we're talking about a group member who can potentially join after the stream has gone on for quite a while, the difference could be quite large.
Yes, that's my concern. That's why I said should not or must not.
But if I understand correctly, one try is just doing, try ESN with high order bit 0, check the bucket.
Yes.
One.
And so on.
And each try is 4 gigabytes of data, 4 billion packets in the stream, which is going to be like, 4 terabytes about each of those. So if you need to do, 10 checks for one packet for every, 40 terabytes of data, that's a big went through that. I don't think it's actually going to be that resource expensive in that sense. I mean.
Except that, what if the packet you're testing on just happens to not be a valid packet? Then when do you stop?
And when do you start and when do you stop?
That's a good question. I think we probably need some kind of, instructions there. Perhaps trying a couple of buckets and not the first one you agree.
With unicast SA, it is a bit easier because usually you have some candidate higher 30 bits that you used before, but somehow you skip a lot of packets and you want to resync. You know what to start with because you have a previous version, previous value for this extended high order extended ESN. And with Group SA, it is not the case. And probably if you start from 0 and run to 2 in 32 power, it's very self-consuming. So what value to start from and when to stop? That's the question. So yeah.
Yeah, I think unicast assays are very different in that we expect the two sides to be synchronized. I mean,
yes.
If you've missed 4 billion packets, something's really wrong. Whereas with group assays, it's perfectly valid for some entity to join in the middle. So we may have wrapped the 4 billion 32-bit counter several times since then. And so
yes.
I think it's either it has to be either must not or else a mechanism where you send when they join you to send them the where you are with the counter.
This document I agree on that, and I think actually we could. I mean, it's not unreasonable to allow the group members who already has the key and know the highest ESN bits to actually notify the key manager every 4 billion packets that my ESN actually got incremented by 1 now. So we could have some kind of mechanism where they could actually send a notify to the GJ, what was the name of the key manager? I don't remember the acronym, but sending notify there saying, this SA's ESN is now this. And they could send that every now and then, every billion packets or something like that. And then, when the new device join, he could get that information along with the key to say that last time I heard the ESN high order bits was 77. So start your search from there. So that actually would solve the problem that we actually don't have to go too far in the future, because I mean, if it updates every billion packets, they shouldn't be missing that many 4 billions of packets. So you going 3 or 4 in forward is enough, and then you can stop. And if you can't find it then you might actually go back to the your group controller and say that this key isn't working, do something. or request the key again and get the new ESN value, perhaps.
Well, but you forget the situation when GCKS is not a member of the group of the data security.
No, but he doesn't. But he hasn't. But the group members are part of the same.
Yes.
And they can send the notifies over the IKE channel to the he doesn't need to be in the key server doesn't have to be the member of the group. He just needs to be getting the information from other group members. So whoever is sending lots of data to the group could send updates every now and then. You don't want to have everybody sending updates, but you want to have somebody sending updates every now and then. It could be so that actually people send it after certain amount of after they have sent certain amount of packets.
Okay.
Or whatever it's yeah.
But well, it came to me just suddenly that actually sequence number are not very useful for multicast if we have several senders. So it's probably not an issue, ESN, I mean, because where if you will use sequence number at all, was extended or not extended. If we have several senders in the group, they are not useful because each will increment their sequence number independently, and no replay protection will be possible.
Yeah, so they actually are only useful if you have a one sender.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
So, and that sender, they could then actually update the. So we perhaps should have a text saying that you shouldn't be using ESN unless you have a setup where you have one sender. At that sender can update the key manager or key server with the latest ESN every time it wraps around, and then we have a some kind of mechanism of sending it to the group members when they join. So and then we say that if you have a multiple senders, don't use ESN, and you are allowed not to use it if you don't like it.
Then we can simplify things, and instead of providing group control key server with new high order bit of ESN, the only sender can just unregister itself from the group, just making the group disbanded and form a new group security SA. And then we can stick with 32 bits sequence number and just change the same more frequently, probably. So I think it must be brought to the list and discussed a bit more, if you don't mind. So another question is using tunnel mod. So, well, sorry. What about PPK integration? So I think we decided that the approach that group controller notifies group members that it should immediately rekey, and only then and key and registration, and only then send the key is affordable. So, right? Okay. So tunnel mode. So currently GIQ2 doesn't provide group members with tunnel address. And this is a big problem, this is a big question for me, whether it is needed at all. And if you look at RFC 5374, multicast extension for security architecture, it allows both tunnel and transport mode, but tunnel mode is described as so-called tunnel mode with address preservation, when IP addresses from inner and from the outer IP headers are the same. So the IP address are just copied from inner IP header to the outer one. And so it's some kind of tunnel mode that with the same addresses that provides, I think, no additional benefits, but it is still defined. So in this case, we don't need a tunnel address because it is always the same. It is always this multicast address from the inner header. But so my question, so it seems that these modes had little value. It just consumes the resources. And I think the only reason to use it if some gateways participation is a group, and I don't know, route from one multicast address from another one, or encapsulates a unicast into multicast, I don't know. But how group controller K7 knows if this is the case? So it is preconfigured or not? And the second question is RFC 5374 defines that both addresses can be preserved, but a separate bit controls whether they are preserved, either source or destination or both. And my question, who will control it? So gateways that performs this tunneling or group controller K7, and I think that group controller K7 doesn't have enough information to tell. So it's a question more on multicast, and I don't have enough expertise in this area. Any opinion?
Yes, there I would just say let's keep it just tunnel mode. I don't think we need transport mode. Even if the security gateway participate, it doesn't help because if the if the addresses are always same, it doesn't really matter.
Yes, but I just try to follow RFC 5674, which defines a multicast extension for architecture, and there are two modes defined: transport mode and tunnel mode with address preservation. So if we support it, then I just see no value for this tunnel mode, but it is defined. So my question, should we support both of them, or should we?
I think we can just drop it unless we see some real use for it.
And probably can we request an expertise from, I don't know, it's routing area on what multicast or transport area. Can we do it? Some review from people who are experienced in this area. So, Tero, what do you think you have as chairs?
I would say just make it as simple as possible. So actually, I would just say let's use transport mode, and that's easier, I think.
Okay.
Whatever is easier for you to actually document.
It's for me. It's Scott.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, the problem with users choosing transport mode is that the IP addresses are then not protected unless you do which we're not going to. That is, say that somebody can manipulate them and those changes would not be detected.
Yes, that's a good point.
Very
Louis?
good point, and I think we should document that and then perhaps actually keep it there, because it would actually be useful to know who the sender is. But of course, if all of the senders has the same, keys, it doesn't matter because it doesn't authenticate the sender anyway. But at least you know who would be who to blame if there's some garbage coming in.
Okay, Louis?
Yeah, I was actually going to make a similar comment to the previous speaker. I also don't mind taking a look at it and then echo the comment in chat about there is a working group on multicast. But I have a little experience in multicast. I don't mind looking at it, but I do think if you're not supporting something that's in a base RFC, you really should do a BIS on that RFC saying you're not supporting, that mode really isn't supported. I don't think you can just ignore a mode that's in the base RFC.
Okay, so just keep support for both transport and tunnel with address preservation, only with address preservation, as defined in 5374. Okay, next one. So the next question is UDP encapsulation. So do we need an UDP encapsulation for multicast data security assay? And if we need, then how to signal it, either explicitly, for example, add a dedicated new transform type, or implicitly by specifying a destination port for 500. So I don't know. It's my lack of my expertise in multicast. I don't know how often nets are present, and do we really need UDP encapsulation? Because I suspect that NAPT are really rare in multicast, but it's only my perception. So any opinion on this? Peter.
Yeah, I was actually more or less thinking about it's not. I don't think we actually need. If there's a nuts in the middle, I think the multicast probably don't work for them anyway. But the UDP encapsulation might actually be useful in other cases, because I have seen also networks that doesn't allow you the port 50 protocol 50 go through, but might allow even the multicast with UDP go through. They don't do that, but they just filter things that they don't understand. That IPsec is that it seems to be complicated. I don't understand. I block it. So it might be actually in some cases might be useful. But of course, one of the problems there is that because if we are sending a data in multicast, then we have to send it to everybody in the same format, meaning that we are sending either in port protocol 50 or in a UDP port 4500. It's not really a per device, thing that you can actually configure. It should be per SA.
Yes,
and,
exactly.
and then I think we need to actually have a transfer type or something like that. And as the multicast, as currently defined in IC version 1, doesn't support it, I don't think we actually need to add that feature now, because we are not qualified to be expert on this matter to actually understand the implications of it. So I think it's better to just say that, okay, let's not add it now, but know that if somebody comes back and say, oh, we would actually really like that, then we can say, oh yes, okay, we can make an extension for that in the later,
okay,
and add
so,
it then.
So just drop it now, and if somebody needs it, then issue an extension document. Okay, I agree. Thank you. And okay, transport mode signaling. Again, it was in Terrace review, because currently in the draft to signal transport mode. Well, if the problem, so group security association may have some IPsec assay created in tunnel mode and some in transport mode. It's currently, and how to indicate which assay from this set of assays is created in which mode. So currently the draft changes the semantics of use transport mode when it is used in the context of GIQ2. so that in IQ2 this notification doesn't have SPI and protocol field, doesn't use them. It has it, doesn't use. And now we are defining JIQ2, we'll define it so that protocol and SPI fields are used to indicate which SA use transport mode. And another difference is that multiple instances of this notification can be sent. So each instance indicates that this particular SA identified with SPI is created with transport mode. So I think that it is not an update to RFC 7296 because the context is clear, and the context just determines which interpretation is correct. And for unicast, I could say we use the current interpretation. For JIQ2, we use the new interpretation. But Terra said that it is not okay, so we have several options, several other options. So either add a new notification. For example, GSA use transport mode. That will have the semantic described above, but just a different notified message type. Or add a new transform. For example, it can be called encapsulation mode in GSA payload, so that we can indicate which mode say is created in a per SA basis. Or prohibit policy when some SA are created in transport mode and some are created in internal mode. So in this case, all the data security SA in this group security SA will be either created in transport mode or all will be created in internal mode. And so we can use transport mode notification as is. So any opinion? What should we do? So Tero.
As we don't really know whether these people are going to be using transport mode or tunnel mode and so on, and we have a mechanism saying that use two different GSA payloads, meaning extra payload, extra round trip, because I think you need to do one round trip with first GSA with the use transport mode and second one with the without use transport mode. So I think it's actually simple to just say that, okay, you are not allowed to use mix transport and tunnel mode in same GSA. If you need that feature, use two GSA, exchanges over the two different create child SA, or sorry, what was the name of the? Oh,
it will be two different groups.
Yeah,
it will be two different groups.
Yeah, to do it in different groups, and if people later come back and say that, oh, we use this feature very frequently, and we want to use this, and we don't want to pay the extra penalty of doing that, so then we can come back and make a modification. I think we should get this out as simple as possible, out now, and not try to think what people might be thinking or requiring in the future. Okay. We should have a method of doing in the future, or method of doing things, even if it's not optimal. Then we can optimize it later if we found out that this is very important, that they want to do this every 2 seconds.
Okay, I got it. Thank you. Well, I think it's all, unless I forgot something that can happen, because again, the draft is huge and terror review is also not small. So I will issue a new version, and I think at least one more out and review is definitely needed. Again, the document is big, and it's easy to leave something very important just because it's dropped from my mind. And I'll be very grateful if people look at the document and send comments to the list on any of the issues that I we discussed now. I try to have a discussion now, or any other issue, or any comment about the document. So thank you very much, and please review.
Yeah, so I would like to actually get people feedback. Is there anybody here who would actually be willing to review this document? Paul, Dan, anybody in the Dan, are you willing to review this document? You are looking like deer in the headlights. Oh, you said yes. Good.
Great.
Yeah. All right. So I would really like to get more reviews on this because it's something that has been out there for like 10 years, and we should. It was get dropped because of the MCAST working group got closed and Ipsecme working group got closed, and so we should try to get it out. And
Okay. Thank you.
all right. Let's go. So next we have then the optional SATS payloads in Child Exchange. Okay, and I will pass. You should be able to drive the slides now.
Okay.
This is the combined slide, so just go forward.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone, and I'm Wei Pan from Huawei, and I'm glad to present this the updates of this draft. And this draft has been gone through maybe 3 years, and I'm very happy to see many people are interested in this draft and provided many useful and comments and suggestions. And this is a recap of the solution. Currently, the solution is quite simple, and it contains 3 steps of for the optimization. First is the negotiation. The initiator and the responder will initiate the support for doing this optimization at the IKE-OS exchange, and after negotiation, when rekeying the IKE-SA, the initiator will send our new optimized rekey notification, which contains the new SPI to the responder, and the responder will reply in the same way. And in this situation, the current SPI is included in the IKE header, and when during rekeying the child essays, the initiator also sends the optimized rekey notification, and in this case, the current SPI is included in the rekey SA notification. The updates from version 7 to version 8 are mostly editorial changes, and we updated the diagrams which showed in the previous slide, and the corresponding text to clearly show how new and old SPIs are included in the child exchange. We also believe that the current version now is clear and mature, so maybe we can ask for working group adoption at this time. Yeah, that's it.
So, any comments on this?
Palo Alto, just a comment that we plan on implementing this in LibreSwan.
Hello?
I must confess that I didn't read the latest version of the draft yet, but I have a question. So you are using a notify payload to indicate which SA is being rekeyed, whether it is IKE-SA or IPsec-SA. So my question is about the format of this payload. Are you using an SPI field and protocol field, or is it this SPI are in the data field of this essay? Just a question.
Do you mean the new SPI is
Yes.
included in which?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I see, Paul. Paul, maybe you can want to say something.
Paul speaking. I believe the new SPI is in the notify payload because the notify is using the existing spine numbers.
Well, and
it's for, right? So the notify has the spine numbers of the IKE assay, if I'm correct. So it's in the notify payload, if I remember this properly.
So just joking. So notify payload does have an SPI values, but the SPI values are really meant to be bits. It's not really
yes,
used in this
that's
kind of
why
situation. It's like for this essay, but here we are talking about some other essay. That's why I think the Ricky, Ricky essay actually is using into the payload because it's not. It's talking about some other SPI and this one. And I think this one should be also using the same, just a payload. And it's okay to have it in the payload because we can. This is a new notify. We can actually add it there.
That's why I asked. So it was the essence of my question. So the SPI should be in the data area of the notify payload and not in the SPI field and protocol field. But I didn't read the draft, so probably this is already the case. So sorry. Want to be sure. Thank you.
So, and I think this is not explicit in our charter, but this is minor extensions or an update. So I think we can actually fit into that case. So I think we can actually get our AD to allow us to take care of this. Of course, the AD now changed. He might have different opinions, so I probably need to ask. But is there any objections or here in the who would actually say that we shouldn't be starting the working group adoption call for this document? And of course, we can continue fixing things like notify payloads if they're not correct after we get it as a working group document. I don't see anything, so I will probably talk with the AD and then start a adoption call for this after this meeting. Or probably actually a week after, because I think the ADs are usually, for some reason, they're busy after the IETF week. I don't know why. So I think, so that was everything about this. So let's see. Can I stole back the power control? No. There's no way for a chair to steal back the control of the slides. No, I need to find this one. So now we are in open discussion. Any other business that people would not like to talk about here? We are getting quite a lot of our documents out to the ISG, but we still have a couple of documents that haven't been seeing that much of progress in the last few days or months or years in some cases. Paul, go ahead.
So sorry, I couldn't find my window and tap and button for the hand up on my laptop. I just want to briefly point out the multi-assay document. We still have a Linux implementation that is not merged into the main line because they don't want to merge it before we are further in the process and actually dedicated to it. So I would like it if people would review and comment on our proposal. It was very much simplified in the last draft by removing all the quality of service items. So please give us some feedback so we can move on and get the implementation in mainline kernel. Thanks.
So I assume you send an this kind of note to the working group list and say that please review this. All right. So I think there was a Valerie in queue or something.
Well, I just wonder whether there is any interest in.
No, you're very quiet again. or start talking. It might actually get louder.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. I just wonder if there is any interest in beyond 64K draft that describes how to transfer large payloads. Well, probably not in a general way, but for key exchange and auth payload in IQ2, and also define so-called mixed transport mode when IK is been run over TCP, use TCP for X exchanges, and ESP runs over UDP or over IP. And I think that there is probably one more application for this mode. And I've seen just a few hours ago a new draft 0 version has been published about combined hybrid authentication on IQ2. I didn't read it in detail, but as far as I understand, it combines several post-quantum key signature algorithms that also will make an IP payload very large. And probably it's time to look at this beyond 64K draft and adopt it if there is any interest. So, Tara, should we ask for adoption? Should we, I don't know, initiate a discussion?
You should initiate a discussion, and then if we get, people interested in that, then we have to check it out. That is actually in our charter to actually solve the issues related to the, post-quantum thing and one of the things is the, packet sizes. So we should initiate the discussion and try to get people starting working on it.
And
actually, then when you get some interest, then we can actually start your adoption course if you think that
okay.
People interested in it.
Okay, we'll initiate discussion. Thank you.
So anything else before we finish? I don't see anything coming up, so I think then we actually are done. So we were a little slower than what I expected in what I allocated for slide, but it was good because we actually managed to get some issues solved. Okay, thank you.
Efficient. Okay, so hopefully we'll see everybody in Philadelphia, maybe even in person.
Yeah, here's hoping for Philly. Bye, everybody.